Mr. Pilgrim, let me thank you very much, but let me just briefly talk about the situation that Barbados had a similar situation that we experience now. You talked about the coming together of all the stakeholders, both you and also Mrs. Opadeyi. You talked about the coming together of the stakeholders, union, employer, employee, everybody. And you talked about just creating a productivity culture, awareness, giving assistance to the process, monitoring the process and the outcomes. You must evaluate productivity at all levels. Not only the employees, boss must meet on time too. Right, manager must show the way, show the example. You talked about evaluation, the measurement and improvement. And I remember reading a book, The Human Side of Enterprise. All that was done. They changed the lights from ordinary bulbs to fluorescent lights. People work like they're crazy. That's, you know. You talk about not reinventing the wheel. If somebody did it before you and it was successful, why not copy? And so we expect to copy from you. We expect to use you. And I want to sound a warning to the Secretary. I heard you talk about this conference that's coming up later this year. And I am saying the THA should try and have a group going, the union, employer, business, THA, ECA, Chamber of Commerce, find people, send them to learn what's happening in that big international conference. You're not hosting it, go as delegates. Let them do all the expenses and you just go and so on. You talk about public education. We must engage in public education. That is a necessity. The use of the media, the papers, the radio, the TV. When you go around to the villages, you go and say, listen, man, if we ain't work, we go come like the crapo that we scalding and boiling, and we're not even saying pungala. So watch it, watch it, watch it. And the P's, we thought of the prayer, the pride, the perseverance, being proud, principle, pay, and people. Mrs. Opadeyi, you also gave us some addition to this, so I wouldn't rehearse what Mr. Pilgrim said and what you identified is slow, gradual process, again the Crapo syndrome, labor shortage, absenteeism, lateness, punctuality, wellness, linking wages to productivity, poor management and leadership, poor human resource management, no succession planning. You're present but not working, and we know that. We go into offices, people playing games on computer, and they're on, but I don't know how the finger's still good. Everything else. Not enough trained and skilled persons, transport, traffic, yes, you know, that is a terrible thing. Mismatch of skills and illiteracy, not enough CXC passes, and then to ask ourselves, what is our role in productivity? Ladies and gentlemen, you have 10 minutes for questions.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. My name is David Ramjohn. Today I'm representing the American Chamber of Commerce. We would like to thank the THA, the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development, for extending the invitation to us. I would like to extend the regrets of our president, Mr. Ravi Surya Devara, who could not be here. I hope I am a worthy replacement for him. But thank you very much for this opportunity. A few questions and some observations and comments. Mr. Pilgrim, my P for you would be patriotism.
Oh, yes.
That is one of the things that I've always said, that patriotism, and which for me really is service.
Yes.
And it is doing the best that you can at whatever you do. Mm-hmm. And that really for me sums it up. Mm-hmm. Couple of questions for you. How do you think, in terms of Trinidad and Tobago's context, do we suffer from a resource curse and possibly the Dutch disease? And this could go for both of you, whichever one wants to tackle that question. But it's really the paradox of plenty. And has that been something that has affected our ability to be more productive and to diversify? We only have to look at the Singapore model to see what they have done without any natural resources whatsoever. The other thing is rewards for productivity, yes. But what about repercussions for non-productivity? Has that been examined? And you know, you look at the stick and the carrot aspect of things. The other thing really, and this is for development moving forward. We absolutely need to have accurate, timely, and relevant data. And we have to have the systems in place. So how do you measure those systems and ensure that the data that you're using to form your policy decisions going forward are actually, what you really need to have? And we need to establish or apply performance frameworks and indicators, and that's a very important aspect of it. So how can you address that for us in terms of your experience going forward? Thank you.
Okay, with regard to the whole question of persons who are non-performers who should not be rewarded, that is always a challenge. But one of the solutions that we have promoted to address that particular issue at the enterprise level is to encourage organizations to develop performance management system. What you realize that in the past, especially in the public sector, the performance management system was very simplistic. Punctuality, initiative, some basic things. What we have been able to do with a lot of enterprises is to get them put in place structured performance appraisal system where employees are appraised based on work responsibilities, and you set certain grades, and where they're also appraised based on behavioral traits, teamwork, team spiritedness, customer satisfaction, and let them identify those competencies, those soft competencies that are relevant for the workers. So in a case like that, employees are fairly assessed. The whole question of subjectivity tend to go through the window, and the objective purview comes into play. So that sort of ensures that, look, if you are not a performer, it's not about being punitive, it is about what can the organization do to introduce developmental initiative to bridge the divide between where you are as a worker in terms of performance and where you ought to be. So that kind of two-pronged approach in terms of assessing individual workers, having a structured system in place, and linking it to rewards, because mind you, every worker in the organization receives his base salary. If he don't perform well, if he or she don't perform well, you can't take back the salary. There's not a principle that allows for that. But what you can do, you could recognize those workers who have performed exceptionally well and allow the principle of reward to encourage those lower performers to want to be part of the second round when it comes to being recognized and rewarded. So it's motivational, it's based on the Maslow, Hertzberg, and those psychologists who are big into those theories, but it's the application, so to speak. Now, the other question in relation to data and systems, what we have been able to do, I remember I mentioned the Macro Productivity Indicators Project, where we cover 7 sectors per year. And we cover a whole plethora of enterprises, get them involved. Actually, more of them are getting involved in the next year project, so to speak, because they're recognizing that the information that we are sharing on productivity, absenteeism, which is actually the absenteeism rate among several enterprises in Barbados, by having that data, has been dipping. Because it allows the organization to introduce absent management strategy. For example, if you realize that the absenteeism level, let me wrap up quick. If you realize that absenteeism level at the support staff is fairly high, it may mean that when you have your incentive plan, you need to allocate a bigger portion of the pie towards that particular variable, so to speak. So the data that we have been able to develop, we have been able to share it at the enterprise level, and they have been able to do the inter-firm comparison analysis and put them in a better position to plan management from a tactical perspective, we recognize and reward workers. Yeah?
Okay, the basic comment that I want to make relates to the research. And yes, I mean, we have been hearing, ad nauseum, the whole issue of no current accurate data being available. Last week, we were in Grenada, which would be the EU, on the EU ILO project. And that is a €2 million project, which came out of the EPA, right? Economic Partnership Agreement. And basically, what we were doing is trying to identify some of the main and common areas of weaknesses in both employer and labor organization at the Caribbean level and then at the national level. And one of the commitments of that project is to look at the research capacity of these, we're talking the region here now. At ECA, research is one of the very important role that we play in terms of employers. And so we do ongoing research, in different areas, absenteeism, productivity, some of those things. But of course, that's just focused to the members of the ECA, etc. But definitely, we should see some strengthening of that competency in terms of research and having the data, because you cannot go ahead making policy on I think so and I feel so. You must have the empirical evidence. Yeah.
Just one other point, let me just mention quickly. It's important for organizations, if you want to use the word engage in participative management, it's important for organizations from time to time to meet with staff and get from them ideas. We have recognized that that particular component is critical when it comes to improving employee productivity, because in many instances, workers got ideas sometimes that you as a manager or supervisor may not have. And by engaging them and by having this dialogue, it provides the opportunity for them to share. There's so many stories that you can give about the downside to not involving workers. On the other hand, the upside to involving workers. There's a story. This is it. They said at a hospital in the United States of America, my friend from the American Chamber of a hospital in the United States of America realized that patients in one of the intensive care unit died every Sunday at 1:30. Now that's serious, right? The administrators, they got together and they dialogue among themselves to find out, well, what's causing this? So some person suggested, why don't let us meet in the room at about 25 minutes past 1 to see what's happening. So they agreed. And they assembled, and there some people were Catholics, walked with their holy waters and prayer books and things, and people assembled. And the story goes on that at exactly 27 minutes past 1 o'clock, Pookie Johnson, the part-time janitor, walked into the room with his vacuum cleaner, unplugged the life support machine, plugged in his vacuum cleaner, and started vacuuming. Now that's the downside. I mean, the only person that seemed not to know about the issues in the organization were the part-time workers, which means maybe for some reasons the level of value that was being placed on them was. Now that's the downside. The upside of the story is that when you have organizations that are big into recognizing, rewarding the workers, involving them, communication, treating them as if they are really assets. They said an airline in America, an old lady got on a plane, belonged to an airline in Dallas, Texas. She was going to New York, so the plane had to go to Miami so that she could change flight and she get a connecting flight. But when she left Dallas, Texas, she put a dog in a cage. And when the guys in Miami went to change the luggage from one plane to another, they realized that the dog was dead. But these guys were big into management, treated them nice and recognized them and rewarded. So these guys said, look, we need to find a solution to this problem. We can't have this dog going on to New York and next thing the woman. So one guy said, you see that dog? I saw a dog like that this morning on my way to work when I passed through Coral Gable in a pet shop. When I put together some money and buy the dog, so they did. I put together $6 a piece. The dog cost $100. The one guy went and collect the living dog and changed the color from the dead dog, put it in the cage, and the flight went on to New York. The story goes on is that when the old lady went to clear the luggage and saw the dog, the old lady started screaming and shout and said, my dog, my dog, my dog. The supervisor came and said, madam, what's the problem? Maybe he might have known what the guys in Miami did, you know. He said, madam, what's the problem? She said, my dog, my dog, my dog. He said, madam, tell me what's... She said, would you believe that when they put my dog in the cage in Dallas, Texas, my dog was dead? But my dog is living again. No. There's a moral to every story. There's a moral to every story when it comes to worker and labor productivity. There's a moral to every story. The moral to the story is this. When you have workers who love what they're doing and connected to the organization, they could turn moments of misery into moments of magic. I think that's the kind of thinking that we should promote in terms of seeking to extract the best from the employees. You want another story? No.
We don't have the time. We have to leave the time. She running close.
Good morning, everyone. Nicole Brown, representing the Department of Youth Affairs. It's a question, perhaps it's a rhetorical question, a question to think about in terms of productivity. Now, we have been hearing over the years about the Caribbean region on a whole, that this issue of productivity. I would have, as an undergraduate, I would have been privy to some of the teachings of the late Lloyd Best. And one of the things that he spoke about constantly was the Caribbean looking at the areas that we have comparative advantage in. And one of the areas of our comparative advantage is in our creativity, in our dance, in our music, and in our drama. Could it possibly be that part of the reason we are facing this crisis of lack of productivity is that we are investing in industries that are not within the remit of our cultural, the things that we gravitate towards naturally as Caribbean people? Could it be that we need to put more investment into developing our cultural industries? Because when you look across the region, when you see our carnival, our stage productions, you see productivity there. You see it come out. So is it that we need to look at, in addition to, I'm not saying eliminate the traditional economic structures, but could it be that many of the workers who are sitting down at desks probably should not be at desks, and that they would function more effectively in another environment? So that was my question.
She's answered it. She's answered it.
I like that in terms of we should do what we have been doing, as well as if we have the comparative and the competitive advantage, do it and do it well. If you're looking to go into industries where there are opportunities that will create value added and increase capacity, diversity, skill, let me get the best of both worlds. But what we need to do in order to address that is to ensure that we have multi-skilled persons. We need to ensure that persons are not locked into one particular vein when it comes to education. If every single person in here changed their job tomorrow, I am sure that you can find that you have some skills that you don't use that will make you employable. A lot of the housewives in here are good cooks. Am I right? You can be some of the best chefs in the hotel sector in Tobago, but you're locked into a particular responsibility. So I'm saying that examining the whole issue of skill enhancements, multi-skilling, multitasking, all those multi-things that the young people can do, that older persons like me cannot do, is something that we should pursue. We should not lock them into a particular purview, so to speak.
Dr. Mackenzie. Dr. Mackenzie. Dr. Mackenzie. Dr. Mackenzie. Morning. We wasted a few minutes by introduction, so let me get straight to it. Productivity. I just want the young lady who just spoke in relation to the talent and creativity. We can agree with you. However, if we're not productive and use the talent within a specific time, you still won't produce the money, which is the material that you need to be profitable anyway. So regardless of what talent we have, it has to be done in a particular timeline, and we got to get really good at it in order to produce profits. So regardless of what we choose, that is going to be very crucial. I will probably throw a different spin to how we speak on the island. I think we are really a pot of frogs. And I got that when I heard you speak, madam, in terms of the fire has been below us, we've been in the pot, the heat has been turning up slowly, and we got accustomed to it. We have really done nothing to adjust ourselves. And I kept saying it all the time, we need to have a crisis. So maybe all the frogs need to be thrown into a pot of boiling water for us to wake up. I want us to get past all the things. Barbados has a story, and I just want to say that we actually had a social dialogue task force. It was under the last Minister of Labour. Only recently we got a letter that said meetings are suspended. So we did have that tripartite arrangement. The documents were signed, and we need to agree as a people where the will is, and where the way is, are we really willing to change? Let us stop fooling ourselves. The Barbados model came out of the fact that somebody bigger than you came and said, do or die. And then everybody jumped on board, and you have a great model, and today you still work hard and you do what you have, and we keep envying your tourism product. I have not heard anything this morning, although it's one of our big models we speak of. I heard of the THA division under community development seem to have some good stories, but for the one that we speak about, tourism being our big diversification, I've not heard anything as to how we're going to treat with that, although we've invested most of our time as private sector speaking those stories and topics. So without going much further, I just want us to take it that we have accepted to be frogs in the pot with the fire slowly going below us. And if it's nothing else I took away from today, was that, and I want to thank you for it.
Okay. You're welcome. There was actually a picture that I didn't put. There was actually a picture which I should have left, but... I said there was actually a picture.
Good morning.
A cap with the frog, which I should have...
Pleasant morning to one and all. My name is Carlton Seaford, and I have a simple question concerning productivity. What model can be used to educate the common man and on a continuous basis with regard to productivity? Can there be, for example, a mandatory training to productivity, as since that you took the initiative steps in Barbados?
Productivity means different things to different people. If you ask a teacher what's productivity, that teacher may tell you productivity means being able to ensure that he or she get maximum passes. If you ask a person who is a carpenter what's productivity, he might tell you productivity means that he complete the house that he has to build on time, he save money, and he go on to do something else. If you ask me as an economist what's productivity, or ask Professor Farrell, we might introduce something and say productivity is about output over inputs and the synergistic. So it means different things to different people. To get into the minds and the hearts of persons, the whole concept and practice of productivity, you must tell people what is in it for them. Tell people the benefits. For me as an employee, what does it mean to me if my productivity increases? What does it mean to the government if the productivity increases? What does it mean to the citizens? Better services, better infrastructure. What does it mean to the employer who has invested money? More profits, a wider range of products and service, a bigger market share. It is selling in a particular way the benefit, so that when people at all levels, stakeholders at all levels, decide to engage themselves in addressing productivity, they can see and they could sing from the radio station WFIIM, what is in it for me. And that's the best selling approach. Eh?
My comment would be, I recall in primary school, there was something called civics. I am not sure if I'm dating myself, if it's still in place. But I think that the impact can be made on the young people because it's a whole change. We spoke about the mindset, and it has to be included in the curriculum. Okay, the whole issue of productivity, it has to be part of how we operate. It has to be ingrained in our culture. You know, the issue of one of the things, negative impacts of productivity. We're talking about late coming. And I mean, this is something that we hear all the time and we talk all the time. If we say we're having a meeting at 8 o'clock, the meeting seldom starts at 8. And I want to compliment, I want to congratulate and thank Dr. Mack, because she said if there is one person sitting here at 8:45, we will start. You know, and some of those are seen as, you know, well, old values, etc. But those are the values and those are the habits and those are the things that we need to practice as adults, and we need to teach them to our children. What they see is what they're going to emulate. So yes, we need to get into the curriculum, the schools, the community, you know, community centers. We need to have that like a mantra. productivity has to be part of who we are.
I support that wholeheartedly because let me tell you something that happens in the Caribbean. We have workers in the Caribbean that would go to work late, all kind of crazy things, and the induce system to change that behavior. But yet the same workers will go to the States and get to work through the snow and got 3 jobs going. So what is that? What is it that environment allows people to be more productive than we in the Caribbean? You know, so we got to start at the school level. Educate, entice, encourage. We got to do what we got to do.
Yeah, yep.
Let's go on to our second